Good afternoon, everybody. This is Brad Newenswonder. I would like to welcome you to the December 4th Lunchtime Hot Topics. I want to remind everybody that we do these Lunchtime Hot Topics the first Wednesday of each month, starting at noon. Shortly thereafter, we post these on my webpage, so if you ever want to go back and review these at another date, they are available. We also break them down based on topics on the agenda. Today we're going to talk about the one-page accountability report. That's something I'm going to share with you here in a minute. Followed later on by the alternative assessment, the DLM, by Carrie Rogers. Cindy Haddocky is going to give you an update on the recommendations that went before the state board last month in November on dyslexia. And then Amanda Peterson is going to provide you an update on the road shows that happened over the last year in early childhood. So let's start out with a little bit on the one-page accountability. Last legislative session in 2019, the legislature is requiring this agency to produce a one-page, they call it an accountability report. Basically, all of the data that's going to be on this report, I'm going to show you a draft of it here in a moment. It's information that's already out there on your district's report card. We're just pulling bits of information together to put on a one-page front and back that you can print off, you can share. That way you don't have to spend so much time searching for key information. These will be, our goal is to have these posted by the middle of this month. So sometime in mid-December, we will send out a message, let you know where it is, how to access it, and all the information to follow. So let's share with you, again, this is a draft, but information that we anticipate is going to be on this report. Starting out with, we're going to share some information about just your demographics. What percent are your student body. We're going to have some information on there about your status, whether or not your district is accredited. Are you a K through 8, a pre-K through 12, superintendent's name? There's one piece of information on here. This is your ESSA, ESSA, meaningful differentiation. We have to identify that. I'm going to give you a little bit of information here in a minute to remind you how do we go about giving you meaningful differentiation. I'll share that with you here in a minute. There's also going to be some information on there about your post-secondary academic readiness. Basically, what percent of the students in your district are scoring at a level 3 and 4 on the state assessments? We'll have science, math, English language arts. It's going to be how you're doing relative to the state average. Again, we call this post-secondary academic readiness. That means they're doing work that we believe at levels 3 and 4 that'll prepare them for post-secondary, whether it's college algebra, English comp. So there'll be a little information on that. So I want to go back just a little bit. We haven't talked a lot about this in the last couple of years with ESSA, but every district has to have an annual meaningful differentiation. If you've been around long enough and you remember back in the No Child Left Behind with AYP, you were either meeting standards, if you were below that AYP target, you were on improvement. Under ESSA, it's totally different. When we look at annual meaningful differentiation, it's how is your district doing relative to all other districts? So when we look at performance on state assessments, we look at all buildings across the state, and this is an example of buildings because there's also an annual meaningful differentiation with buildings. we look at where is the median building in the state. And then we look at one standard deviations to the left and right, and we find that, and it's about 66% of our schools are one standard deviation above or below the median. And those are school districts that we would say are meeting our expectations. There's a group of districts that are above one standard deviation, group of districts and a group of buildings that would be exceeding. Those buildings that are more than one standard deviation below are approaching, and then the ones that are more than 1.5 standard deviations, those are our buildings that are below. Again, the annual meaningful differentiation is relative to how your building or your district is doing relative to all other buildings and districts, not towards just some target that was set out there where all school districts need to perform. So I just wanted to remind everybody what annual meaningful differentiation, how we come about that. Also on the one-page accountability report, we'll have our post-secondary effective information. Again, this is looking at, it has your graduation rates. It has for the last, and again, this is 2 years lagging because we're looking at 2 years out of high school for your post-secondary success. But this report will be on the one-page accountability. It'll include your 5-year averages. And we think this is, again, when we listened to Kansans, there was no one accountability measure that outweighed another. So we're trying to put just a good cross balance of data that's already on your report card that we could pull into this one-page accountability. There will also be state assessment information included in this. The legislature specifically said they wanted to be able to show performance over time, so we're going to display it in 2 different ways. You'll have your raw data for 15-16, 16-17, 17-18. Again, this is just a demo of what it would look like. We'll be using 18-19 this year, so we'll drop off the 15-16, but you'll get 3 years by math, ELA, and science, and it will also be displayed in a nice graph so you can see, are the trends going up, are they level, are they steady? So anyway, there will be some academic measures on there, including we will also have some ACT performance data on there. Again, just about everything's going to have how your district is doing relative to the state. There's also going to be information on here that looks at your attendance rate. Again, what's the attendance rate for your district as compared to the state? It'll have chronic absenteeism. There will be a little narrative about how do we look at chronic absenteeism. There will be dropout rate. There will be graduation rates, as well as we will include information on instructional spending per pupil, as well as just operational. We like to break this out because even though there's a lot of expenses in your district, not all of it can be used for instructional purposes. So we try to differentiate that out. And lastly, there will also be information on the one-page accountability report that shows for your district, in what areas have you received recognition with the new STAR recognition program. Some of these we're rolling out this month, the quantitative ones, the graduation rate, post-secondary, the high school graduation, but we'll also have 3 of them that you'll apply for in the future, and that will be the social-emotional, kindergarten readiness, and individual plans of study. We'll be putting those out this spring and some rubrics for you to look at, as well as civic engagement. That will be based on what percent of your buildings are part of the Civic Advocacy Network. So again, just wanted the timeline for this will be the middle of this month here in December. We will send some information out on this that will hopefully be useful to you, share with your board, share with your patrons, as well as if you're, for example, you're on a visitation team under KISA for another district, it'll be a good way for you to quickly be able to access some information about your district or any other district. Reminder, if you have any questions at any time about the Lunchtime Hot Topics, you can email those questions to lunchtime@ksde.org, and we'll monitor that, and it gives us some good ideas on topics that you might want to be hearing in the field. Again, you know how to get a hold of us. We're here to support you. If there's anything that we can do, reach out, and we're excited to be working with you.